The Galactic Academy cafeteria was chaos that day. Growls, laughter, the scent of dominance heavy in the air. A group of towering predator cubs had claimed the doorway like it was their hunting ground. No one dared pass. No one, except one small human woman. She didn't shout, didn't threaten. She just looked up, calm as still water, and said, "Excuse me." What happened next made an entire species question everything they thought they knew about humans. Because when she spoke, predators obeyed. If that opening made you curious, hit like, because what follows will change how you see humans forever. Subscribe if you love stories where humanity quietly steals the spotlight, not through lasers or brute strength, but through something far deeper. And hey, share this one with your sci-fi friends. Let's show the galaxy what calm authority really looks like. The recording began with a calm voice, old and measured. Observation log, Galactic Academy, Day 3172. Professor Velur adjusted the HoloLens, his tone steady, but beneath it, there was a tremor. "I have studied human behavior for 3 years," he said. "I thought I understood them. I was wrong." He paused the playback and stared at the footage looping before him. The cafeteria entrance, massive, bright, filled with chatter and movement. And there, blocking the door, were 6 Krevtok juveniles, young predators 2.5 meters tall, all teeth and muscle. They stood shoulder to shoulder, laughing as smaller species hesitated to pass. It was dominance play, typical, predictable. He'd seen it 100 times. But what happened next broke every behavioral model in his database. At 12:47 station time, a human approached, female, small, unarmed, holding a coffee. The Krevtok juveniles grinned until she spoke. 2 words. "Excuse me." The footage showed it clearly. Their posture snapped straight, jaws tight, bodies shifting as one. They stepped aside in perfect formation, like trained soldiers responding to a superior officer. Velur froze the feed, whispering, "They didn't move out of fear. They moved out of recognition." Something primal had just awakened. The cafeteria fell silent. Even the air recyclers seemed to hesitate. Dr. Emily Carter, human, xenobiology instructor, 5'5", maybe 60 kilos, had just walked through the most dangerous group of adolescents on the station, and she hadn't even looked back. The Krevtok juveniles stood frozen. Their leader, Thrak, blinked hard as if waking from a trance. His claws flexed, confused. "Why did we move?" one of them whispered. Thrak had no answer. He only knew one thing. He had to. Security logs later confirmed there was no threat, no vocal modulation, no pheromone burst, just calm authority. Velur replayed the moment frame by frame. Emily's body language was relaxed, shoulders loose, eyes steady, no aggression, no flinch. She didn't ask them to move. She informed them they would. And somehow, the Krevtok, predators who ruled by intimidation, obeyed without a second thought. When she said, "Thank you," they even straightened like cadets at inspection. In that instant, the galaxy's fiercest young hunters realized something deeply unsettling. Humans weren't prey. They weren't rivals. They were something else entirely. Something that didn't need to roar to command a room. Hours later, Professor Velur sat across from Thrak, the Krevtok leader. The young predator's claws drummed nervously on the table. "She's small," he muttered. "Weak. I could have—" He stopped himself. "But I didn't want to." "Why?" Velur asked softly. Thrak's throat clicked once before he answered. "Because when she looked at me, my body just knew. Moving was the right thing to do." He shook his head, frustrated. It wasn't fear. It was respect. Velur noted every word. Respect, an emotion rarely shown by Krevtok toward prey species. Later, the professor interviewed Dr. Emily Carter herself. She laughed when told about the footage. Oh, that? Yeah, I used to teach high school biology. Detroit public schools, 15 years of managing 30 hormonal teenagers at once. You learn a few tricks. Velur frowned. But you didn't threaten them. Exactly, she said, sipping her coffee. You don't win with aggression. That just triggers the challenge response. You stay calm, certain, steady. You project the expectation of obedience. She leaned back, smiling. I wasn't asking them to move. I was telling them, with kindness. Velur realized something profound then. The human voice carried authority even evolution couldn't ignore. By the next rotation, the Krevtok dorms were quieter. Something had shifted, subtle but unmistakable. The once rowdy juveniles who used to snarl and shove now stood a little straighter, spoke a little softer. They didn't block the doorways anymore. Professor Velur observed Thrak early that morning. The young predator approached a corridor intersection and stopped. Dr. Carter was coming down the hall. Without hesitation, he stepped aside and even held the door open. She smiled. Thank you, Thrak. And the towering predator looked pleased. Velur nearly dropped his data pad. Respect wasn't just maintained, it was spreading. Over the week, other faculty noticed the same. The Krevtok cubs had begun mirroring that strange human calm. Less posturing, less dominance play. When Velur asked Thrak why, the young predator quoted her words exactly. She told us, "You're strong. You don't need to prove it by bullying the smaller ones. Real strength is knowing when not to use it." He looked away for a moment. She was right. We were acting like cubs, not warriors. Velur watched him leave, his tail low, posture composed. Human words, just words, had reshaped a predator pack's instincts, and that terrified and fascinated him in equal measure. Professor Velur stared at the final report, hands trembling slightly. For years, he had cataloged humanity through data, muscle ratios, endurance, brain chemistry, but none of it explained what he had just witnessed. Humans weren't the strongest, fastest, or most resilient species in the galaxy. Yet when they spoke with certainty, apex predators moved aside, instinctively, willingly. Velur dictated his conclusion. Humans are not merely apex predators. They are social alphas, creatures who've mastered coexistence without surrendering dominance. Their authority isn't broadcast through aggression, but through quiet conviction. He watched the footage one last time. Dr. Carter walking through the Krevtok line, calm as gravity itself. Excuse me? Two words that carried millennia of evolutionary poise. Predators recognized that voice, not because it threatened, but because it commanded. Velur later asked how she developed such confidence. She only smiled. Professor, I raised 3 sons. All played football. All brought friends home. At one point, I was managing 6 teenage boys under one roof. After that, Krevtok cubs are a vacation. Velur laughed softly, closing the log. The galaxy's predators had met their match, not in battlefields or labs, but in a teacher with coffee, patience, and the quiet power of a true alpha.